Hi everyone. So this is the first lecture for ethics and professional standards. Right now, this subject is quite controversial because people generally have a difficult time studying for this or passing this subject. So we're going to do this in a lot of detail. I'm going to first cover this from CFA Institute's study material, which I'll be referring to now. And later on, we can go to the Schweitzer notes also for a short summary, right? I want to get into detail for this. So that is why I'm referring to this module. It's going to be a bit lengthy, but it's fine. We want to cover up everything, right? So ethical and professional standards is very important for you as a CFA because when you work for a firm, you need to be very balanced, unbiased, and a good financial analyst so that your investor needs are met very nicely. You cannot mislead your investor, you cannot mislead your company, and you need to be very thorough and ethical with your practices, right? So the first reading is ethics and trust in investment profession. So this is what are your duties in ethics and what all you will be learning in the field of ethics from the point of view of an investor or the shareholder, right? So let us see what all we are going to do. We are going to see the meaning of ethics, the role of code of ethics, challenges in ethical behavior, why do we need higher ethical standards, difference between ethical standards and legal standards, and applying a framework for ethical decision making. So this is a broad guideline as to what all we are going to study in this chapter. Okay, now let us start with the introduction. By the end of this chapter, guys, you will be given certain cases and case laws, and you will have to decide from various angles whether the option given to you is ethical or not, and if you can find out or chalk out some ethical option in a particular scenario, right? Let us start reading. As a candidate in the CFA program, you are both expected and required to meet high ethical standards. This reading introduces ideas and concepts that will help you understand the importance of ethical behavior in the investment industry. You will be introduced to various types of ethical issues within the investment profession and learn about the CFA Institute Code of Ethics. We will be learning what are the code of ethics created by the CFA Institute, also what is the importance of that in the investment profession. Subsequently, you will be introduced to a framework as a way to approach ethical decision making, which is most important. You have to make ethical decisions. You cannot go unethical as a CFA. Now, they've given an example in the beginning. Let's read it. Imagine that you're employed in the research department of a large financial services firm. Okay. Any financial services firm, any of the big four companies, right? So you're employed there. You and your colleagues spend your days researching, analyzing, and valuing the shares of publicly traded companies. So public listed companies, the shares of those, you are analyzing the trading patterns of that and sharing your investment recommendations with clients. So you're researching on that and sharing your valuable information with your clients. Why? Because you have to help the client or the investor or the potential shareholder know what is what in your company. You love your work and take great satisfaction in knowing that your recommendations can help the firm's investing clients make informed investment decisions and that will help them to meet their financial goals and improve their lives. So you are advising them, obviously, in financial matters of investment, whether to invest or not. You will be doing research in which company to invest, which is the best company for them, etc., etc., right? Several months after starting at a firm, so you've started working, you learn that an analyst at the firm has been terminated for writing and publishing research reports that misrepresented the fundamental risks of some companies to investors. Okay, so what has happened here is some XYZ analyst has been terminated, laid off from the job for writing a report that misrepresented the fundamental risks of companies. So he was not giving out the true picture. So he was giving false information to investors regarding certain companies. Okay. You will learn that the analyst wrote the reports with the goal of pleasing the management of the companies that were the subjects of research reports. He hoped that these companies would hire your firm's investment banking division for its services, and he would be rewarded with large bonuses for helping the firm increase its investment banking fees. Some clients bought shares based on the analyst's reports and suffered losses. They posted stories on the internet about their losses and misleading nature of the reports. When the media investigated and published the story, the firm's reputation for investment research suffered. Investors began to question the firm's motives and objectivity in research recommendation. The firm's investment clients started to look elsewhere for investment advice. The company clients began to transfer their business to firms with untarnished reputations. With business declining, management is forced to trim staff. Along with many other hardworking colleagues, you lose your job through no fault of yours. Now, what is the scenario here, guys? You are working in some corporation, right? And some ABC analyst has been laid off because he gave some reports which were not correct. They were misrepresenting the fundamental risks. So you can say they were concealing the risks and not informing them to the investor, and the investors seeing these reports have invested in those companies. Now they have clearly concealed some things here, right, and given out a very nice green picture to the investors, in a also in a hope that the management will be happy for the window dressing they have done here. Now what happened consecutively is that the investors invested in the corporation, they lost their money, and now the reputation of this investment research company has gone downhill. So people are not ready to take their recommendations, and they will move to some other corporation which will help them make their investment decisions, right? So with this again, that person lost his job, and with a chain effect, even you lose your job. Now although it was not your fault. Now imagine how you would feel in this situation. Most people would feel upset and resentful that their hard and honest work was derailed by someone else's unethical behavior. So this was unethical on what count, guys? Because he was showing people something that was false or misleading and quite far away from the truth. Yet this type of scenario is not uncommon. Around the world, unsuspecting employees at such companies as SAC Capital, Stanford Financial Group, Everbright Securities, Enron, now Satyam Computer Services. Now these are the various financial service corporations they are naming here. Arthur Andersen and other large companies have experienced such career setbacks when someone else's actions destroyed trust in the business companies and industries. Business and financial markets thrive on trust, defined as a strong belief. Now, what do you mean by trust? It's a strong belief in the reliability of a person or institution. Yes, you trust someone when you believe what they're saying is true. In 2013, in a 2013 study on trust, investors indicated that to earn their trust, the top three attributes of an investment manager should be that he has transparent and open business practices, takes responsible actions to address issues or crisis, and has ethical business practices. Although these attributes are valued by customers and clients in our industry, this reading will explore why they are of particular importance to the investment industry. Now, they are giving you three top things. They can ask you this in the questions, guys. So it's important. What are the three attributes any investment manager should have? So he should be transparent, open to business, he should have open business practices, no concealing, guys. He should take responsibility, so he should be accountable, cannot shy away from responsibility, and has ethical business practices. People may think that ethical behavior is simply about following laws, regulations, and other rules, but throughout our lives and careers, we will encounter situations in which there is no definitive rule that specifies how to act, or the rules that exist may be unclear or even in conflict with each other. Responsible people, including investment professionals, must be willing and able to identify potential ethical issues and create solutions to them, even in the absence of clearly stated rules. Now, guys, let me distinguish what is the difference between a legal standard and ethics. See, legality of a matter makes it mandatory for you to follow the rules. Ethics is when you make rules and follow rules even when there is no law. So this is a step higher from legality, right? Let us start now. Let us see what is ethics. Through our individual actions, each of us can affect the lives of others. Our decisions and behavior can harm or benefit a variety of stakeholders. Now, what are stakeholders? Stakeholders versus shareholders. What is the difference? Now, shareholders, guys, are the people who have invested in your company, who hold shares in your company. Stakeholder is a person, any kind of person who has any financial interest or a stake in your company. So this can range from not just shareholders. It will include shareholders, it will include suppliers, it will include the government, because these are all affected by your corporation. So they have a stake in it, right? Affected by your corporation, that is the only definition. Employees, your debtors, etc., right? So individuals or groups, see, they have defined it here. Individuals or groups of individuals who could be affected either directly or indirectly by a decision and thus have an interest stake in the decision. Examples of stakeholders in decision made by investment industry professionals include our colleagues, our clients. So who all are affected by the investment decisions that you make? Our own colleagues, like the financial analyst in the preceding example, right? Our clients, so our potential shareholders, our employers, the communities in which we live and work, investment profession, and other financial market participants. So your fellow colleagues, chartered accountants, CFAs, CSs, right? Financial analysts, your clients, so the persons or investors you're trying to grab for your company, your employers, your communities in which you live, right? And financial market participants like financial market intermediaries and stuff. In some cases, our actions may benefit all the stakeholder groups. In other cases, our actions may benefit only some. And in still others, our actions may benefit some stakeholder groups and harm others. So there can be three scenarios. It can be good for all, bad for all, good and bad, a mixture for all. For example, recall the research analyst in the introduction who wrote misleading research reports with the aim of increasing financial benefit to himself and his employer. So his aim was to be all, a chocolate boy in the eyes of his company, him and his employer, and he wanted to give like this a very good image so that his company will be very happy for him. That is giving out a false image which is making our company look good. In the short term it might run, but in the long term it's not going to pay off, right? In very short term, his conduct seemed to directly benefit some stakeholders, certain clients himself and his employer, and to harm other stakeholders who invested based on his reports. Now, people who trusted his reports were clearly misled. Who did their own research, maybe they were better off, right? Over a longer period of time, his conduct resulted in harm to himself and many stakeholders. He lost his own job. Other people also lost lost their jobs indirectly because of the layoff policy of the corporation, because it stopped working. His employees, clients, his colleagues, investors, and through loss of trust when the story was published, larger financial markets. So people even might start losing faith, not only in your corporation, but also your sister corporations, right? Ethics encompasses a set of moral principles and rules of conduct that provide guidance for our behavior. So the word ethics, guys, it comes from a Greek word, and it comes from the word known as ethos, right? So the meaning of ethos is character, used to describe the guidance, beliefs, or ideals characterizing a society or a societal group. Beliefs are assumptions or thoughts we hold to be true. A principle is defined as a belief or fundamental truth that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behavior or a chain of reasoning. Our beliefs form our values, those things we deem to have worth or merit. Now, guys, ethics gives your personal character, and morals is something different. Now let us compare these two. Moral principles or ethical principles are beliefs regarding what is good, acceptable, or obligatory behavior and what is bad, unacceptable, or forbidden behavior. Ethical principles may refer to beliefs regarding behavior that an individual expresses of himself or herself, as well as shared beliefs regarding standards of behavior expected or required by a community or a societal group. Now, guys, in actual sense, ethics and morals are quite different. Morals are societal values. Ethics is a personal trait, guys. So, for what is wrong for the society can be right for you. What is right for the society can be wrong for you, right? So, ethics is quite a wider concept than morals when you think about it, because it encompasses your personal beliefs. Morals can be as simple as what is right and wrong. For example, now in the previous scenario of that chartered financial analyst, which we just read in that research company, as morally talking, he was wrong. But ethically speaking, for his own personal ethics, he thought that he is right because he is doing good for his company. But he was foolish enough not to understand that the drawbacks of it would be quite long term, right? So, moral principles are guided by the society to you to help you understand what is the basic obligatory behavior which is good, acceptable, what is right, what is wrong, what is forbidden, right? Ethics is what is your personal trait on that. Obviously, ethics is derived from morals. It's a personal character, but ethics can be a wider concept. So, ethics can change from person to person. So, it's quite subjective, right? Another definition of ethics is the study of moral principles, which can be described as the study of good and bad behavior, or the study of making good choices as opposed to bad choices. The study of ethics examines the role of consequences and personal character in defining what is considered good ethical conduct. Ethical conduct is behavior that follows moral principles and balances self-interest. Guys, this is very, very important. Just what I told you. Moral principles, but with a hint of self-interest, with both the direct and indirect consequences of behavior on others. So, when you are talking of ethics, actually, you don't think of morals, because this is again your own personal belief. Let's just take an example. Um, Stealing is bad. We know that stealing is bad morally, right? But if there's a poor person who doesn't have food, and he has a sick mother or father, right, a dying mother or father, and he really needs to eat something to, or provide them with something so that they can take their medicine, suppose, and he steals, ethically it's okay for him. Ethically, I mean, for his personal own benefit. Morally it is wrong. This is just something I'm telling you, right? Ethical actions are those actions that are perceived as beneficial and conforming to the ethical expectations of society. An action may be considered beneficial if it improves the outcomes or consequences for stakeholders. Obviously, guys, when you talk in the social sense, ethics always means what is right. If someone is doing the wrong thing, we always say that it's not ethical. This is the minute difference which I told you. You don't need to remember it for your exams, but the truth is it is different. But yes, in common parlance we do interchange the words ethics and morals, and yes, good behavior is always construed as ethical behavior. Telling the truth about the risks or costs associated with a recommended investment, for example, is an ethical action. Yes, if you are giving advice to a potential investor, you need to tell that person what are the risks involved in that investment, what are the costs you can bear, and if there are, what are the profits, or whether he won't make any profits, right? And whether that investment should be recommended or not, or whether he should invest in that particular stock or not. That is one that conforms to ethical expectations of a society in general and clients in particular. Telling the truth is also beneficial. Telling the truth builds trust with customers and clients and enables them to make more informed decisions, which should lead to better outcomes for them and higher levels of client customer satisfaction for you and your employer. Yes, obviously, if you talk the truth with your client, he is going to immediately trust you, and trust is the basic essence of any good business organization. Any organization can grow from an organization to an empire just on trust, right? Right, let's go ahead then. Widely acknowledged ethical principles include honesty, fairness. Okay, so they have started with the ethical principles which we know in our daily lives also, right? So honesty, speaking the truth; fairness, being just; diligence is taking due care; respect for the rights of others. Most societal groups share these fundamental ethical principles and build on them, establishing a shared set of rules regarding how members should behave in certain situations, which also gives us the code of ethics for a particular organization. The principles or rules may take different forms depending on the community established by them. Now, these are the basic ground rules, guys: honesty, fairness, justice, diligence, and respect for others, right? So you build your organizational values depending on that. Governments and related entities, for example, may establish laws and regulations to reflect widely shared beliefs about obligatory and forbidden conduct. There are few spelling mistakes in this, guys. We'll just rectify them as we go along. Laws and regulations are rules of conduct specified by a governing body such as legislature or a regulator, identifying how individuals and entities under its jurisdiction should behave in certain situations. So this is what is a law, and it is punishable if you do not follow that law. Most countries have laws and regulations governing the investment industry and conduct of its participants. Differences in laws may reflect differences in beliefs and values. Now, each country is going to have different values regarding investment decisions. Obviously, tax havens are going to have quite relaxed policies, which is not good. In some countries, for example, the law requires that an investment advisor act in the best interest of his or her clients. Other countries require that the investment professionals recommend investments that are suitable for other clients. Investment advisors and portfolio managers who are required by law to act in their clients' best interest must always put their clients' interest ahead of their own or their employer's interest. So this is a bit contradictory to them, because suppose if you are advising someone to make a decision, you do get a commission on it, you do earn money on it. And if you want to give them good advice, you may have to tamper with your own interest also sometimes. So it is the customer comes first. So the investor has to be pleased first. Then comes you, and then comes your employer. This can be interchanged. An investment advisor who is required by law to act in client's best interest must understand the client's financial objectives and risk tolerance, research and investigate multiple investment opportunities, and recommend the investment or investment portfolio that is most suitable for the client in terms of meeting his or her long-term financial objectives. In addition, the investment advisor would be expected to monitor the client's financial situation and investments to ensure that the investments recommended remain the best overall option for meeting the client's long-term financial objectives. So first step is, guys, you need to talk to your investor or your client who has come to you for help and ask what is his need and what is his objective of investing. So there can be 2-3 objects. One is he's just looking for trading and making short-term profits. Second is looking for investing long-term. Like he just wants to invest money and just get over with it, and he doesn't even want to look back. So depending on that, you can help him identify which shares or stocks to buy, right? So if he's into trading, you need to help him buy those stocks which are selling at a low price right now, so he can buy and then sell when it gets a higher price. If it is just for investing, you need to advise him on good portfolios and good stocks, which might be a little on the high side right now, but it will give him even more money later on, right? In countries with only a suitability requirement, it is legal for investment professionals to recommend a suitable investment to a client, even if other similar suitable investments with low fees are available. These differences in laws reflect differences in beliefs and values. Okay, so this is going to change from country to country, obviously. Specific communities or societal groups in which we live and work sometimes codify their behavior about obligatory and forbidden conduct in a written set of principles. So these are known as the code of ethics. So what they do here is they write down what are the values that are to be followed in that particular organization. Universities, employers, and professional associations often adopt a code of ethics to communicate the organization's values and overall expectation. So, specific ethical rules or practices employed in any organization in a written form is your code of ethics. The code of ethics serves as a general guide of how community members should act. Some communities will also expand on their codes of ethics and adopt explicit rules or standards that identify specific behaviors required of community members. So they will be giving you specific obligations or rules which you need to follow. These standards of conduct serve as benchmarks for minimally acceptable behavior. Benchmark is a threshold or a standard or a stepping stone. Benchmark is sort of a goal or a standard. Like suppose if I want to lose weight, right? So the benchmark is 50 kilos or 50 or about 100 pounds, right? So that is the basic benchmark. According to that standard, then I can decide whatever weight I want to gain or lose. I'll just give you an example. So similarly here, the basic benchmark can be that you don't lie, you come on time, right? You file your statements before the due dates have arrived. Just giving you an example. Members can choose behaviors that demonstrate even higher standards. By joining the community, members are agreeing to adhere to the community's code. So whatever community you're joining, so for example, if you're joining the Big Four, right, and you're joining any corporation, you have to adhere to the policies they are adopting and standards of conduct. To promote their code of ethics and reduce the incidence of violations, communities frequently display their codes in prominent locations and in written materials. In addition, most communities require that members commit to their codes in writing on an annual or more frequent basis. So they do, make you sign the agreement before you start working somewhere, and they do make you understand that you have to adhere to the contract or the code of ethics. So you have to verbally or in a written format adhere to that, agree that you will follow those principles. Violations of a community's established code of ethics and or standards of conduct can harm the community. So there's not going to be any punishment for this, but it is going to harm their own reputation. Violations have the potential to damage the community's reputation among external stakeholders and general public, just like we saw in the initial example. So if you violate the code of ethics, and if you have a strong one and that, guys, especially, so if you violate it, your reputation is going to go down. Violations can also damage the community's reputation internally. So external stakeholders means your potential investors, the government, the suppliers, they are going to lose respect for you. Internally, your employer, your colleagues, everyone can start losing respect for you. Lead to reduced trust among community members and can cause the organization to fracture or splinter from within. To protect the reputation of its membership and limit potential harm to innocent members, the community may take corrective actions against violations, repay any damages, attempt to discipline the violators. So they can suspend you, they can give you penalties, they can compensate the person who has been suffering a loss because of this, right? Or in severe cases, revoke the violator's membership. They can also fire you, just like they did in the previous example, right? CFA Institute is an example of a community with an established code of ethics. So this is the example we're going to read about. Why CFA Institute? Because you're studying about that, you're going to become a CFA one day. So you need to know about the code of ethics adopted by that institute. Every financial institute has one. Its members and candidates commit to adhere shared beliefs about acceptable conduct of individuals participating in investment industry. These beliefs are presented in the Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct, Code of Standards, which is included in the CFA Institute of Standards of Practice Handbook. The Code of Ethics communicates the organization's principles, values, expectations. For example, code states that members and candidates place the integrity of the investment profession and interests of client above their own personal interests. So if there is a conflict of interest, guys, you are supposed to respect that of the clients first, and then you cannot have your personal biases and interests to be taken care of first. The standards of professional conduct outline minimally acceptable behaviors expected of all CFA Institute members and candidates. For example, one standard requires that members and candidates must act for the benefit of their clients and place their clients' interests before their employers or their own interests. Another standard requires that member and candidate must make full and fair disclosure of all matters that could reasonably be expected to impair the independence and objectivity or interference with respective duties to their clients, prospective clients, and employer. Members and candidates must ensure that such disclosures are prominent. So they are giving you two examples here. First of all, you need to put your client's interests first. Second of all, you need to make full disclosures of all facts that could affect the potential investor's decision making. Yes, because he is going to invest where you tell him to invest. He doesn't know. He's a layman. Suppose if he's not from a financial background, he's totally relying on you to help him out, right? So just like in the preceding example, you cannot just misinterpret something or give misleading information to a potential investor. That is just wrong, right? CFA Institute members and candidates reaffirm their commitment to adhere to the code and standards each year. In addition to protect the reputation of the community members and candidates, agree to submit a professional conduct statement. So guys, first of all, you have to adhere to the code of ethics, that is for sure. You also need to do it on an annual basis, and you have to agree to submit a professional conduct statement. So that will be sort of like an income tax return. You have to give out the details of how your conduct has been throughout the year professionally. Disclosing conduct that may have violated code of ethics. So it's actually not important whether you give out the statement of what you have followed. That is implied, because if you have not followed something, that will come to the notice of people. You need to be more prominent if you have not followed something and disclose that in your annual professional report. To protect members and candidates, CFA Institute has an established disciplinary process. Members and candidates who violate the code and standards are subject to disciplinary action, right? Okay, so guys, we are done with the ethics part of it. Let us just go through these examples. Okay, which of the following statements is most accurate? Ethics can be described as a commitment to upholding the law, an individual person's opinion about right and wrong, a set of moral principles that provide guidance for our behavior. So you have to choose here, right? Now, guys, when you talk of multiple choice questions, you cannot just tick the answer what you feel is right. You have to solve it always by elimination. So we have clearly seen that ethical and legal standards are not the same thing. It is not law. Law is when a government or regulation is making it mandatory for you to follow. It's clearly not one. It is not an individual's personal opinion about right or wrong also. Compared to I just gave you that difference because that is how the Indian financial books describe ethic and morals. So in India, ethics and morals is different, but when you're talking of CFA, it's the one and same thing, right? So here what they are, I just told you the difference so you can understand the difference between both the streams in both the nations, right? So here morals and ethics is different. There ethics is derived from morals. Remember that, guys. So a set of morals that provide guidance for our behavior is the right option. Second, which of the following statements is most accurate? Standards of conduct are necessary component of any code of ethics, serve as a general guide regarding proper conduct by members, serve as benchmarks for minimally acceptable behavior. Okay, these are quite tricky. As you can see, why children have a lot of trouble solving this is the answers are quite close by. See, it is not a necessary component of any code of ethics. That is wrong, right? That is just incorrect because code of ethics will obviously have it. It's not necessary, it's mandatory. Serve as general guide regarding proper conduct by members of a group. Standards of conduct. The general or proper guidance, if they are asking which is the most accurate. General, it's not a general guide, guys. It's a specific guide. So this is also wrong. So by elimination and by logic, the third is the right answer. Serve as benchmarks. We just did that, right? I had given you the example of thresholds. Benchmarks for minimally acceptable behavior required of members of a group, because these are standards of conduct. These are not code of ethics. There is a difference between that, as we just did, right? So this was quite illuminating, I hope, for you all. We are done with the part of ethics today. You can just download this PDF anywhere on the web, guys. If you don't get it, please WhatsApp it on the for the class. Then a PDF will be sent to you. If you can't find it, just go through this once again. Read the entire part so you get a good introduction of it. And then tomorrow we can start off with professionalism, ethics and professionalism, right?